But it seems like the waiting room has not had any more entrants here in about a minute or so. So we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us tonight for the webinar. My name's Lauren Haynes. I'm the Director of Grants for Fire Marshal's Office. And I would like to allow some of the other members that are here from the Fire Marshal's Office to introduce themselves. And I don't know what order to go in because I'm not sure what order people are in. I'll just start with Adam, maybe.
That works for me. My name is Adam Wazinski. I'm one of the community risk reduction coordinators. There's a total of 3 of us. My programs are Close the Door, the Burn Sprinkler Trailer, and Community Risk Reduction Assessments and Plan Development. If you need have any questions or need to reach out to me, I'll drop my email address and phone number in the chat. I'll slide that over to John.
My name is John Perry. I'm also a Community Risk Reduction Coordinator. I'm also over the HEROES program. I help with the FDR ATC applications at this time while Heather is out on maternity leave. And everything that has to do with events, programs, I am the person that is involved with handling all of that stuff. Oh, and the poster contest. I also do the poster contest, which we just are wrapping up this week.
Thanks, John. Amber?
Hey guys, Amber Crawford with my program is the Get Alarm Tennessee program. I also do Close the Door. I've only been here since like July probably, but having a great time meeting everybody and working with my team here at the Fire Marshal's Office. If you need anything, my email is in the chat.
Thanks, Amber. Kayla?
Hey everyone, I'm Kayla Heggie. I'm the Director of Business Process Improvement for the State Fire Marshal's Office and have the pleasure of working closely with Lauren and the grant as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Kayla. Mary Beth?
Thank you for everybody joining us and for future watchers of this webinar. Hello as well. My name is Mary Beth Gribble and I serve as the Programs and Policy Director for the office. And just want to start by saying we greatly appreciate each of you for joining to interact with us as we embark upon the application period for VFEAT. But I also want to make a huge note here that this program has grown much larger than we could have ever anticipated. That first year being $500,000 for the pleasure of us getting to work alongside distributing and awarding $20 million for VFEAT this upcoming year. We can't overemphasize to this group and beyond the importance of you completely putting yourself towards the application process and providing us helpful information about the age of your equipment, what your gaps are in equipment, because all of those things have been a contributing factor with non-recurring funding to be able to inform the governor as well as the legislature that these are the needs and not just in this portion of the state, in your particular district. So just want to say thank you to each of you for taking the time and the effort to join us in this process for VFEAT. So thank you.
Thanks, Mary Beth. I also see Allie joined us. Allie, would you like to say something real quick?
Well, I'm Allie Stevens, and I'm an attorney with the State Fire Marshal's Office. I'll just leave it at that.
Thanks, Allie. And Kimberly.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Kimberly Whaley. I am the budget director for the department and will be assisting with the W-9s. And ultimately, my team handles dispersing all of the funds that are awarded.
All right. Thanks, Kimberly. I appreciate you guys introducing yourselves, and just want to let everybody know it's a team here. Any one of us, if you have a question, if you'll send it to one of us, we'll get it to the right person. So don't worry about that. with that being said, I know people are still jumping in, but we're going to go ahead and move on into the application process. I'm going to try to go fast enough so it doesn't take all night long. But I want to go slow enough for those of you that are on here that may be applying for the first time and want to take some notes.
And if you
And
would, while
sorry, go ahead.
we're going, sorry, Lauren, I was just
Go
going to
ahead.
say, while we're going through all this, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We'll be answering them via the chat, and we'll also have some Q&A at the end as well. So please feel free to drop those questions in the chat.
Yep. I'm going to fill out an application like it's the first time I've ever applied. And so for those of you that have gone through this process before, some of it might be a little redundant, but for those of you that haven't, I hope it helps. And also this is being recorded and it'll be posted where you can go back and watch it later if there's some part of this you need to go back and review. So without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into let me see if I can get my just 1 second here.
Lauren, is that your next vacation spot?
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd take it.
While we're waiting on that to pull up, I see here we've got a question. Do we need to do any closeout from last year before we apply for this year? Lauren, do you want to address that question?
If you're referring to funds you received in the spring of 25, those closeout reports aren't due yet. But if you're referring to funds you received in the spring of 2024, you need to get that turned in, that closeout report. So this is the login screen as it appears, and I'm working in a testing environment. So some things may look a little different, but if you've applied for the grant before, your username and password should still be the same. If it's your first time applying, you will go to click here under register for funding opportunities. As you can see, the screen pops up and you're going to have to select if you're a nonprofit user or a government user. Just depends on what your classification is, if your department's nonprofit or if you're a government entity. From there, you will enter your organization name. You can just enter the first letter. I'll just type A. And you can see most organizations have already been entered into the system. However, if yours has not, right here, you can click and add your organization. I will just go ahead and say right here, this question where it says select the type of organization you represent. You can select both here. If your department provides rescue services and fire services, you would select both. That means that's going to allow you in the future to apply for the rescue squad or the VFEAT grant. All this other information is pretty basic. And once you get this filled out, I'm not going to do it right this second. This is your organization info. This is your user info. You'll select that you are not a robot, as long as you're not a robot, and hit submit. When you do that, you should get a email sent to the account that you put in when you were registering. It's going to look like this. It's going to be from SRGM Grants. And it's going to have a link where you can go in and set your password. So I'm going to do that now. So it's asking me to update my organization profile.
And what Lauren is on now is actually his personal profile. This will have to be updated as well, but the main thing that needs to be updated at this point is the organization profile. That's all the information about your specific department.
That's here. You can see once you click on the funding opportunities, the VFEAT grant will pop up, and that's what you can select 2025. I'm sorry, I can't.
And Lauren, before we go into that, can we go back to the organization profile just real quick?
Yep.
So one thing we wanted to bring to everyone's attention, and this is for anyone that has applied in the past, or if this is your first year applying, make sure that when you go here, you click edit up in that top left-hand corner. Once you've clicked edit in the top left-hand corner, you'll have the ability to change the information on this page. Make sure that your FDID is correct. It should populate correctly, but just if you would, please double check that number. If you need that information, feel free to contact the team to get your FDID. But also, in additional information, that middle tab right there, if you could just click on that, you'll notice that at the very bottom of this page, you are going to notice a new question that has not been there previously. So it is asking you for your number of active programs. This is your participation in Close the Door, your participation in Get Alarmed, or your participation actually joining the, or I'm sorry, attending the Fire Law Symposium. So just make sure that you're aware of what that question is asking for, because you will not be able to submit your application unless you have updated this number. If you already submitted one of your applications, which I know some of you have, we're grateful to see those applications flowing in already. But if you submitted it within the first day or so, you may not have had to fill this out. So if we do send your application back for corrections, that's probably what it is. You'll just jump in there, indicate the number of programs that you participate in, resubmit, and you'll be good to go.
Thank you, Kayla. I'm going to go back to once you get into the application, the first thing it's going to do is ask you to save the draft. Right off the bat, you're going to save it. That's what creates your application in the system. The very next screen you're going to come to will have the solicitation document here. If you want to click on it and read it, you should, because you're going to attest to it at some point. There's a description of the grant program, and the purpose of the grant program is described. Once you've read that stuff, go ahead, click attest there, save your draft. And the next part you have to attest to is that your organization profile is up to date. And this screen is similar to what we were just looking at with Kayla. You just want to make sure all your information is correct here. So if you're a new user, you're going to set this up before it sends you the email to log in. You can come back to it here and just make sure this information is correct. And then this additional information here, I'm going to turn over to Kimberly Whaley so she can discuss some of this because it's a little different depending on if you're a government entity or a nonprofit. And so, Kimberly.
Sure. Okay, so you're going to select, of course, your type of organization, your type of entity, and then I'm going to discuss a little bit more about your Edison supplier ID. If you have previously applied for a grant or if you have been awarded, you likely already have an Edison supplier ID, and you will actually see that over under your organizational profile information. Under additional information, you'll actually see that you have an Edison supplier ID. If one is not there, you can also look back if you were awarded at a prior contract, and it will be located on your contract. If this is your very first time applying, I'm going to walk you through in a minute how to actually apply for an Edison supplier ID.
Do you want me to stop sharing my screen?
You can. Do you want me to talk about the attachments and the W-9s at this point?
You can, because that's the very next screen.
Okay. I just want to make sure I stay in sync with your progress. So there are a couple of addresses that you're asked for. Please make sure you're distinguishing between your physical location, which is where you are located, and your remittance address, which will be your mailing address. So here, your remittance address is going to be your actual mailing address. If you are associated with a city or a county government, this address will actually be their address. So as you're completing your W-9, you will actually gather that information. So I'm going to take control. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so on the grant opportunities page, which I believe Mary Beth actually already referenced in the chat, we will be posting the webinar there later on. There's lots of information, and a lot of the information I'm going to talk about is actually published here. So I want to make sure everybody knows that these are available to you. So as part of each year, and if you have submitted a grant application in the past, you'll be familiar with the W-9, but every single year as part of your application package, you need to submit a new W-9, and it must be a new W-9. So I recommend that everybody go to the grants page, and there's actually a link to the current W-9 form, and you will need to fill this out. This call will be recorded. And we're going to walk through all the steps in order to fill this out, but please, please, please do not reach back into the drawer and try to attach last year's W-9. We can't accept that. So as you're filling out the W-9, it can be a little bit intimidating. It can be a lot of steps, but come back to the webinar, we'll walk through it. Also, there's additional guides posted on the website. So I'm going to go line by line and walk you through what needs to be on each of the lines. I'm going to talk about I'm going to skip some boxes that you do not need to fill out and you do not need to worry about when completing it. Please make sure if you are writing, please write legibly. Please make sure if you are associated with a city or a county that you are coordinating completing this form with them, because they will actually have the information that you will need. So just to start off, line 1, you'll be entering the department's name. Again, if you're a city or a county government that you're associated with, it would be their information provided here. This is the name as it is shown on your federal tax documents, and it should match all your legal documents. Again, city or county, please go to your finance office, your accountant, your controller, whoever handles that, and they can assist you. Box 2, this will actually be left blank. For box 3A, most, not all, but most applicants are going to be other. And for other, it would be a nonprofit, a 501c3, a 501c4, or government. Those are going to be the most common. Now, if you do happen to be an LLC, you will need to check the LLC box, and then you will also need to indicate if you are a corporation, a C corporation, an S corporation, or a partnership in the box just to the right of the LLC. Box number 4, you will leave blank. Starting in box number 5, I want to reiterate, this is your remittance address. This must be a valid U.S. Postal Service address. If in doubt, you can go to the USPS website and you can actually type in your information and it will return what your actual mailing address is. So if you're uncertain, please go use that tool, look it up, make sure your zip code is correct, make sure your city, state, everything is accurate. Box number 7 will be blank. When you get to part 1 with taxpayer information, this is where you're going to enter the department's or the city or county's EIN number. And it will always be an EIN number. You will not enter a social security number here. Now, the next part you're going to do is you're going to actually sign it. And I need everybody to make sure you are printing this form out, filling it out, or filling it out, printing it out. But this signature must be an original signature. We cannot accept digitally signed copies of a W-9. We can accept if you do not have a scanner, do not have the ability to scan it in, if you can take a good picture and upload a good picture, a clear picture of all the pages, all the parts, we can accept that. Additionally, the date must be within the last year. So if you have one that was signed in 2024, we can no longer accept that. Please make sure you are completing a new form each year. It is essential for us to make sure if you are an existing supplier, it allows us to make sure that all of your information is current. And if there is something that differs from last year's, that we will reach out so we can make your updates as needed. This information is essential if you are awarded. We would have to have you as a supplier. And this W-9 is part of the supplier application. So I'm going to pause there. Does anyone have any specific questions about the W-9? I'm not seeing any in the chat. Okay. So, of course, you'll attach your W-9 to your application in Smart Simple. Please make sure you're doing that as part of the application process. Additionally, if you're brand new, if you've never applied, if you've never been awarded, when you're checking in your organizational profile, if you do not have an Edison supplier ID, we encourage you to go ahead and begin the process of applying for an Edison supplier ID. And this will be done separately from Smart Simple. This will actually be done in Edison. And I am going to also walk you through how to do that. It is a relatively simple process. There are a few steps. Again, come back to the webinar. You can come in, watch it step by step, or also we publish documents on the grants website that will walk you through. So you will go to the link and it will take you here. And once you're here, you're going to click on Supplier Portal homepage. Then you are going to click on Supplier or User Registration. Next, you're going to click Register Now. Okay. You're going to click, it's automatically going to choose start a new registration form. So you're just going to click next. Okay, next it's going to ask you some questions. And this is why having that W-9 completed before you do this process. Again, if you have a supplier ID in your Smart Simple profile, you do not need to do this step. This is only for people who've never participated in the program or have a supplier ID already. Next, you're going to put, so for here, you're going to put in your EIN number. I'm making this up. These are not real, it's not real information. Okay. You'll put in your EIN number as well as your supplier name, so your department's name, or your city. If you were a city or county, it would be theirs. But again, they likely have an existing registration. Next, you're going to click on taxpayer identification number, and this is where you are going to select, and it's always going to be 1 because that is for an EIN. Okay. Next, you're actually going to attach the form that you just completed, the form I just walked through, the W-9 form. You're going to attach that to your registration.
And Kimberly, there is a question here of, is your
Oh,
supplier
yes.
name your fire department name?
It depends. So if your department is not associated with a city or a county, then yes, your supplier name would be your fire department name. If you're associated with a city or county, it would be the city of, the county of. So it's very unique to your situation. Okay, so I've attached my PDF. I'm gonna click OK. You will not add anything to the next for the remittance address, but for products and services offered, you will actually pick 12 from this drop-down list and click return, and everyone will pick 12. Are any employees currently or previously employed by the state of Tennessee? For the purposes of a grant, this will be no. The next several questions are actually optional, so you will not need to complete them. And in additional comments, you can type grant, and that just helps know that this is not a company applying for a supplier ID that is related to a grant. So after you've typed that, you can click next. Okay. Now here, we're actually going to enter the remittance address, your mailing address, and this address must match the information that is on the W-9. Once you've entered that information, you're simply going to scroll down and click next. Okay. For each application, you must enter a contact. So you're going to click add contact. Simply going to complete the required fields. For your registered user ID, so this one has a very specific naming convention that you must follow. So the user ID must begin with TN at. So I'm going to type TN at, and then you can choose what you want that to be. Fire department name, an individual's name, etc. Once you've completed that, you'll click OK. It must be unique. All right, so now that I have my contact set up, I'm going to click Next. Okay, once you are here, you will reconfirm your email address. So you'll retype your email address here. At this point, I do suggest that you take a moment and click the review button before you click agree and then ultimately submit. So walk back through, make sure all of your information is correct. I would actually pull up your W-9 form and make sure that you have typed the name, the address, everything as it appears on the W-9. Those two things must match. If everything matches, you can click return. Once you've done that, you'll type your email address and you'll select accept. And then you would actually click submit. For the purpose of this, I'm not going to click submit, but I will tell you what will happen next. Once you have submitted it, you will get a registration ID. This is not your supplier ID. This is simply a number that states that this is your registration, and you will be sent an email regarding utilizing the email that you have used here. This is where all the communication related to the registration will go. So make sure that's a good email address. Supplier IDs, you should allow about 10 business days for those to actually be issued, and you will get an additional email once your supplier ID has actually been issued. So, and I saw there was a question. If you already have an Edison ID, do you need to go back and load the new W-9 or just in the grant app? That is a great question. So if you have an existing Edison ID / supplier ID, you do not need to do the steps that I just went through. All you simply need to complete a brand new W-9 and attach that to your grant application. Any other questions? Again, lots of resources on the website that will help you walk through the process. And the team will be around to help. So Lauren, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thanks, Kimberly. I'm gonna, let's see. So we're back in our application. I want to go back and reiterate one thing when you're doing your organization information, and this box here, Kayla mentioned it. This is asking about the programs you participate in, whether it's Close the Door, Get Alarm Tennessee, or if you've attended a fire loss symposium. You can put 1 if you do one program, 2 if you do 2, or 3 if you've been a member of all 3, or if you're not participating, just put a 0. I want to make sure you don't skip over that question. It's not going to let you save it, but that's what but a 1, 2, 3, or 0 is what we're asking you to put in right there. Back to the application. Once we've got our organization profile where it needs to be, we're going to attest that my profile is up to date and go ahead and click Save Draft. I would do that after every section, just in case something happens. You don't want to lose your work. The next question involves qualification criteria. So the first thing it asks is your fire department recognition up to date pursuant to the Tennessee Code Annotated? You can find that information out if you do not know it by either emailing me or someone else at the fire marshal's office, or you can go to FDTN. Can somebody drop the link to the FDTN in the chat? Now, FDTN, there's a login and username and password that is unique to your department to log into FDTN. If you don't know what that is, we'll have to send it to you. It doesn't change, but it's no problem for us to send it. You can email me or the sfmo.grants@tn.gov, and I'll send you your username and password. But that's where you would go to check your fire department recognition. If your recognition is currently lapsed, you can find the renewal page on the fire prevention website or your renewal form. You can fill it out, mail it in with a $50 check, and you'll be good for 3 years. The next question it asks you to verify is your compliance with reporting, either in INFRS or in the new NARIS system. To apply for the grant, you're supposed to be reporting all fires that your department responds to within 10 days of the date it happened. As a reminder, INFRS is going to go dark at the end of this year, so you need to get signed up on NARIS if you're not yet signed up. And the contact person at the fire marshal's office for that is Kyle Evans. His email is kyle.r.evans@tn.gov. I'm not sure if Kyle was on here. He was running a little late. I'm not sure if he's joined yet or not, but Kyle is the go-to man if you have any questions about INFRS or NARIS. The last question is asking about financial report filings with the comptroller. Now, this can vary what you have to do depending on if you're a government entity or if you're a nonprofit. I'm not going to go into the details on it, but if you have questions, there is a video and guide from the comptroller that's posted on the fire prevention website under grants. So if you're not sure how to answer this question, you can go to those links and it'll explain it to you. Once you've checked all 3 of these things and verified, we're going to save draft again. And we'll move forward to the general information tab. Your organization information is listed at the top. The next question is, have you reviewed training? Yeah, okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Somebody said they have a question.
I think it was somebody maybe entering.
Okay, all right. The first question you have to answer under general information is, did you review your training records to ensure your personnel meet the minimum training requirements established by this statute here or law, whichever? You select yes or no. If you want to make sure you know what you're answering, then you can search this, but it basically just outlines what the minimum training requirements are. Moving on to the next section, it's Series 100 fires that have been reported. If you still have an active INFRS login, you can go in and pull this report for yourself. If you've been locked out and haven't updated your password because you've already swapped over to Neris, that's okay. Kyle Evans, again, is your man. He can help you if you need to find the numbers to go here. Now, this is not asking every call that your department responded to in last year, so that'd be 2024. It's only asking you for the Series 100, which is the type of call in INFRS. And it just refers to calls where a fire was actually involved. So I'm going to enter some numbers here. We'll do 26 for 2024. For 2023, I'll do 10. And for 2022, I'll do 18. And you can put a number in a field, even if it's 0. Once you hit save, it totals it up for you, as you can see right here. The next section, expenditures. I want to emphasize right off the bat, this is asking for expenditures that your department spent. It is not referring to what your county government spent or what your town or city spent total in their budget. This is only asking about funds expended by your department. Every year, folks seem to want to put their whole county's budget in here, and that's not what this is asking. It's only for your department. So I'm going to put some numbers in here. I'll click Save Draft again. And it totals up what I've put in. Moving on to the next question. Has your department previously received funding through this grant program? If you've never gotten any VFEAT money, you're going to put no here, and you can move to the next question. If you have gotten funds in the past, you'll mark yes. It is important that if you mark yes, that you put something in each one of these boxes, even if it's 0. So I'll just put last year, 0, didn't get anything. 2 years ago, then 2 years prior. I'll put that in. I just want to emphasize again, if it's 0, then put 0, but otherwise put the amount of money you received from the grant. The next several questions are on here as a result of either Fire Chiefs Association or the Tennessee Firemen's Association or just your peers across the state that requested we added these questions to this application. The first one being, has your department suffered an uninsured loss in the last 12 months? I don't want to try to go into the details of what all counts here. But if you think you have suffered an uninsured loss in the past 12 months, you can mark yes here, and you'll have the opportunity to explain what your uninsured loss was. This is not going to get you any extra points or anything like that. This is strictly to make the selection committee aware if you've had some extenuating circumstances at your department. Next question. How many fire engines or pumpers does your department have for ISO points? What this is asking is, how many when the ISO surveyor shows up to your station, how many of your pumpers are you expecting to get points for? Not how many do you have at the station, because we all know a lot of fire stations have trucks out back that may run, but that's about it. So that's not what we're talking about here. We're wanting to know how many you're going to request the ISO to give you points for. So you would either select one or multiple. This information is going to help the selection committee when we're looking at the budget for some of the equipment that's on there and help them determine what to award. The next question, how many stations does your department have? Same thing, one or multiple. Just put the answer that applies. Does your department intend to request vehicle extrication tools on this application? I want to point out, this does not say, does your department intend to request vehicles? It is vehicle extrication tools. This is a new question this year because when we get to the budget, you'll see we have extrication tools on the VFEAT budget this year. Historically, they've only been on the rescue squad budget. So this question is on here. And if you want to ask for extrication tools, you will mark yes. But notice this does require you to upload a letter from your local county government stating that you are currently providing vehicle extrication services. It does not say if you hope one day to provide vehicle extrication services. You must be currently providing vehicle extrication services if you want to select that equipment on your budget. Once all those questions are answered, I'm going to hit save. Anybody have any questions about these here? Because I know some of them are new. And I can't see the chat, so if something's in there, somebody stop me.
Lauren, there is a question in the chat. Is that only engines or tankers also?
Okay, so this is going to refer to engines or pumpers, and that means it's got to have a pump on it that'll pump a certain amount of gallons per minute. So I can't remember exactly what the gallons per minute is for you to get credit. I think it's 750 gallons a minute or more. So if you've got a pumper / tanker that'll pump 750 or more, you can get credit for it as a pumper. But if you've got a tanker and it's got a gasoline motor underneath it that you use to pump, that's not going to count as a pumper. Anything else, Kayla?
Nothing right now.
Okay. That question prompts me to mention that we do have on the grants webpage again the ISO equipment list that shows what you need to get points for your pumper. So I'm going to move to the next section. Scope of service. This is where you put your narrative in. And the most important thing you can use the narrative for is to prioritize the items you've requested on your budget. So the selection committee knows what's most important for you to get and what they want to see the order of importance. Because I know a lot of folks are going to ask for a lot of different stuff. Some of it you may need more than others. And so if the selection committee has a limited amount of money, they need to know what your priority is. That's what this narrative should be used mostly for. Now, you could also address a situation like an uninsured loss. You could add more information about that here. If you've got multiple stations or something, and maybe you've requested 12 thermal cameras, you may want to put, hey, we've got 4 stations and we want to put 3 cameras in each station. That's something you could put in the narrative. What you don't want to put in the narrative is any identifying information. And by identifying information, I mean, don't start the narrative out with, we are XYZ Fire Department and we covered the central portion of XYZ County, all that is going to get redacted. Don't put like information like we cover 37 miles of I-75 in Northeast Tennessee, or we are responsible for covering so-and-so state park. All that stuff is going to be redacted. So it'll save us some time and save you some time if you won't put that identifying information in there.
Now, if you do think that it will be helpful to include that you cover 37 miles of an interstate, then I think that that would be an appropriate way to convey that to us so that we, the selection committee will know your need as far as equipment goes, but just don't identify specifics as far as the interstates actually go.
And I think that the additional item here is that a group of your peers sit around a room with myself and others present here on the call to review these in a redacted format. So one of the biggest things is we're looking at different factors, and we've obviously talked about a few additions like the number of stations, which is just helpful information as we sit there and contemplate the award process. But one of the big things that we've highlighted here is that it is going to be redacted. But to Kayla's point, if there is something significant, such as you're requesting that extrication gear, you've obviously attached that letter within here providing that notification that you are currently doing that. That would be important to know within that narrative if you do cover a large stretch of road, for example. But leaving the identifying out information out is very helpful. And I will say that much like when we were all writing our Santa Claus list, you want to prioritize that. So for the selection committee, it's very helpful for them to see that your highest need is here and then you have other needs as follows, because it's important as they get through the process, especially as money starts to dwindle, that they understand that this right here is absolutely make it or break it, or these particular items are high level. We should keep that in the must need category, but maybe that's not funded at this point. I see a question from Stacy. Can we request more turnout gear than we currently have members for? You can request that, and of course, explain that in the narrative. I'll just make a highlight out that the selection committee has historically funded for the current membership, but with 20 million, I always say as these things grow, you never know what's going to happen on the selection committee process, but I would say yes, you can. And furthermore, I would include that information into your narrative. For example, if you've had exponential growth within a particular area and you expect more volunteers, I would make those type of notes in that narrative that Lauren has. And Lauren, I'll hush and turn back over to you.
Nope, you're doing great, Mary Beth. Thank you. Once you get your narrative typed, save draft again, and we will move on to the budget. The budget can be a little tricky. It's what I had trouble with when I was applying a few years ago before I started here. But we can follow the instructions, and it says, click on the plus button. And let's see. Click save before editing, which I did. And we're going to click on this button that says budget details.
And while this is loading, you may experience something similar to this that Lauren's experiencing, where the budget takes a minute and it may say pages unresponsive. Click wait, and you may have to do that a couple of times in some scenarios. It'll do it a little bit worse on us because we are in a non-production environment. But if you would just stick with it, click wait, and it should bring everything up. The budget is rather lengthy this year, so it's just a lot of information to process.
Here we go. So here's what the budget looks like. And for any item that you think you want, you'll start by clicking the plus sign. It's going to ask you how many items do you have now. So for boots, I'm just going to say I've got 20 pairs of boots in inventory. I want to replace 10 pairs. The average age of the ones I'm requesting to replace, I'm going to put 10 years. Number of new requested items. The difference between new items and requested for replacement items is new is going to be, it's just that new. I'm not replacing any that I have in my existing inventory. I'm adding to my existing inventory. I'm going to put 0 there. And then I'll move to the next item. I'm not going to go through all these because I want to get down to this question here, federal grant cost share. If you have been awarded a federal grant and you want to request the cost share portion of it through VFEAT, you can do that here. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about it. I'll just say if you have a federal grant and you're not sure how to work it on here, email us, please. I realize the government is shut down, and so some of you guys are under the impression you're going to get a grant, but you hadn't got the letter yet. There's all kind of different scenarios here with the federal grant cost share. So I just want to say, to keep it short, holler at us if you want, if this question applies to you and you have any issues with it at all.
Lauren, I was just going to echo that again with so many variables here. If you do anticipate that, just because there are a lot of different things that we as a team have talked about that would allow for some greater flexibility during this process, as we hopefully anticipate some more winners coming down from the federal level. If you will reach out to Lauren, we will be able to work through that process with you. So please let us know if there's any questions that come up at all, or again, if you're anticipating that. I don't think we can overstress just our awareness to that particular item.
Yes. So I moved down here to the extrication equipment.
And Lauren, before you move on, there's a couple of questions regarding the gear.
Okay, sorry.
Gary Peters is saying, what if we have coats, pants, boots, and they're all 15 to 20 years old? And then Sean said, same as previous, all of our gear is old. How do we portray that in the budget? Replace all.
Yeah, so what that would mean is if you've got 20 in your inventory and it's all got to be replaced, you're going to put 20 here, requested for replacement. For the age, you just pick the number down here.
And then if you have 20 in inventory and you need all 20 replaced, and you also have 5 additional pairs of boots that you need, then you would just make that a 5 under that number of new items requested. So in totality, you would be asking for 25 new pairs of boots.
Correct.
And so you would just indicate that for all of your gear. So if you've got bunker coats that are 25 years old, you'll just go into average age of items requested for replacement, and you'll just notate the number of years associated with your equipment.
Here's your extrication equipment. The extrication equipment is not considered a high priority piece of equipment. But we did add it on here this year. And we'll see, what happens with it. That stuff can eat up a lot of money quick, but it would, try to take a little pressure off the rescue grant side of things by offering that equipment through VFEAT. When you move down here, these are items that the ISO wants your pumper to have on it for you to get points.
And Lauren may have already touched on this, but those ISO items are high priority items.
Correct. It doesn't show up here, but it will show up once we save it. High priority items have an asterisk beside them on the budget. If you look at the budget that's on the website, it'll show it on there also. But you got ladders, axes, Halligan tool, fire extinguishers. Here's your attack line. Supply line is not on here this year. That we may, try to address that in the future. But for right now, supply line is not on the budget. Now you can request it as an additional item if you want to. But right now we've got the attack line from 1 inch and a half, 1 3/4, 2 inches. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time scrolling through here because I think if you look at the ISO list of required items, you can see what of this you need. But if this is why we're asking how many pumpers you have that you want to get points for, because that, if you're going to ask for 8 of these 2.5 inch gated Ys, but you've only got 2 pumpers, then the selection committee might say, wait a minute, why do you need that many? I'm just throwing that out as an example.
And Lauren, there is another question here about
Okay.
What type of attack line do you fund?
What type? I'm not sure I understand what type.
Yeah, and Gary, feel free to either clarify or come off mute, either one. While you're working on that question, we've got another question here. If we're not requesting a particular item, i.e. extrication tools, but we do have them in our inventory of tools we use, do we need to include that information in the budget on here? Or is it only for items or equipment we're requesting? And that the second half of that is your answer, Lieutenant Cornett. This is just indicate the equipment that you're looking to either replace or get new equipment.
Correct. Yeah, the reason that, the purpose of this is to help departments replace their old equipment. So that's why it's asking you, are you asking for this equipment because you've got some already, but it's just too old and you want to replace it? Or are you asking for some stuff that you don't have currently, but you'd like? So that's why those questions are being asked. And I don't know if there was any follow-up on the attack line.
There is,
Okay.
i.e., and I'm probably going to butcher this, but Mercy Seds or plain rubber cotton jacket.
I think that's not specified on here, so that's going to be up to each individual department what kind of attack line they want to get. Now,
and there is a certain price point that's associated with this attack line field. So it would be attack line that's somewhere in the realm of $948, for example. So that may make the decision for you.
Yeah, I'll go back to 1.5 inch attack line. For instance, let's just say you've got 10 sections in your current inventory. We're going to replace all 10. Ten more. Price per unit is $168. We may need to check that, Kayla. I'm not or mine
That's,
too, 'cause
that's what I was looking at, is what you've got for the cost per unit for $168 for a 50-foot hose is rather low. I mean, that's probably a cheap grade hose. We just
well,
got to replace all of our hoses, and they're like $550 a section.
for a 50-foot section.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's still on the lightweight 1.75 inch hose, 50-foot sections, and they come with a 10-year warranty.
Okay. What we may have to adjust the prices next year. These quotes come from our friends at Tennessee Fire Chiefs Association. They get the quotes and stuff for us. But I understand some items might be a little bit low, but we try to get right in the average on the prices here.
So in the narrative, can we explain why we are requesting an upper on the attack line hose request?
Sure.
Okay.
You can. Yeah, that'd be fine.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, we're down to the end of the budget. This would be where if you want to request something that's not on this list, you can do that here. We do ask that if you do that, that you upload the quote for that equipment. And I'll show you where to do that in just a second. And then training, you can also request training. You just describe the kind of training you're getting, how many firefighters are going to get it, and then how much it costs per firefighter, and it'll total that up for you. So I'm going to hit save on this. Let's see.
And just as a quick recommendation, while he gets all of his numbers correct there, one thing I would recommend doing is reaching out to the education and outreach team before you request training, because I know in a lot of these scenarios, we've been able to refer people to the training academy to provide free training. So please make sure that you reach out to either Lauren or someone else on the team to just verify that we don't already offer that training at no cost.
And to Kayla's point, if that's the case, we would be able to go ahead and get you on the books for that training versus having to wait for it. So it's an important feature. Each year when we've had requests come through, we've attempted to follow up to make sure that we're offering that particular item. And so that's just a small highlight, even if you weren't planning on doing that. The Tennessee Fire and Codes Academy, not just physically on campus, but off of campus, provides training. So it's an important feature that we're doing that for free. So in terms of what we can offer, we'll be happy to send out contact information particular to that. But to Kayla's point, anyone who's available on this call, we'll be happy to get you connected up with that.
And Lieutenant Cornett, again, he's just asking, he wasn't sure if it was asking for everything we currently have, whether it was something we were asking to replace or add more to or not. For instance, we just received new battery extrication tools, so we do not need extrication equipment. So we do not need to list that on the budget. Am I understanding this correctly? Yes, you are understanding it correctly. If you have the equipment and you're not looking to get additional equipment like a battery extrication tool, then you don't need to list that you have one in inventory. That would only be listed if you were requesting to replace the one you had in inventory, or if you were requesting to add an additional unit to the one that you already have. So let us know if you need any more clarification on that.
Sorry, I'm waiting on this.
And just as some filler text, I was going to let you guys know, once again, you should not be experiencing this in the environment that you're working in. But if you do see this happening 2 to 3 times when you're working on your budget, if you could just let us know about it, so that we can allocate some more resources to those tables, and hopefully you don't experience that. But up to this point, we've had several submissions and no one's reported it thus far. So please just let us know.
So you can see once I hit save, it's got the items listed that I requested.
And like Lauren had said earlier, you do get to see the priority here on this budget sheet. So you can see that all of that ISO equipment was labeled as high priority, which the selection committee takes into account when they're awarding equipment. And Lauren, I don't know if we touched on this earlier, but the acknowledgement tab, did you want to go back to it real quick after we finish up with this page?
Where is that?
If you'll go up to the top, yeah, and then hit your little arrow that's pointing left up just a little bit more.
Here?
If you just wanted to, yeah, if you wanted to just touch on a couple of those items.
On the, well, disregard these dates down here because this is, again, in the testing database. These will be accurate in the production database. Your solicitation document is here if you want to look at it. This shows that the program is providing $20 million dispersed equally across the 3 grand divisions. Then this shows what the program purpose is. Number 1 is to reduce or reimburse the local cost share, which is typically 5 or 10% of the total award of a federally awarded grant to a volunteer fire department for the purchase of firefighting equipment and training. It also allows volunteer fire departments to apply directly to the state fire marshal's office for firefighting equipment or training. And you'll see the caveat here, vehicles or apparatus are not eligible under this grant. Is there anything else you wanted me to cover there, Kayla?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay.
I had one item just to cover quickly. I've had some questions about eligibility on both sides. So let's say I just was awarded an AFG grant, and I'm now wanting to purchase something directly or apply for directly for the state fire marshal's office. You can apply for both. So in other words, I have my local match that meets the standards here. I can apply for that, but I also maybe need an air compressor. You can also reply to that line as well. So there were some questions that I've at least received this year in particular to, can you apply for both lanes? Yes, you can.
All right.
And just to real quickly touch on a couple of questions here in the chat. Do you think it's going to hurt our chances at approval that we just took over our department this year and no paperwork or reporting was kept up? We don't even know if our department has ever received this grant.
The short answer to that is if you'll reach out to me, we'll see what we can figure out on that. Because that sounds like a unique situation, and I don't want to, without knowing a lot more details, I don't want to give you an answer on it right now. But I will, if you'll email me, I'm happy to help you guys work through that.
And Gary Peters, the same goes for you. If you've got some questions, it seems like your department only has the state comptroller reports. If you could just reach out to that sfmo.grants@tn.gov. Lauren would be happy to assist, maybe pull some numbers from Kyle, and some different things we could put together. So please feel free to reach out.
All right, we're going to move on, getting close to the end here now, to the roster portion. You can see it says the first thing, move to roster information to begin filling out your roster. It's going to be to leave. And this may, I don't think this is going to work in testing because I've got a fake fire department, but maybe it'll let me add. There it is. So it advises you to add edit members to create your roster. If you'll notice, this year we've got 3 separate fields for first name, middle initial, and last name. Actually, before I go there, pay attention to the instructions up here. It's going to ask you if the name you list is a career firefighter or a full-time firefighter, or if they're a volunteer. This is in relation to their role at your department. So it's not if you've got a career firefighter that's, let's say, on Murfreesboro Fire Department, but they volunteer with your department. That does not mean they're a full-time firefighter on your department. We're wanting to know, this is people who get paid 40 hours a week or a full-time salary for your department, not for somebody else's department. And you just start adding your members in. Now we're asking that if you put yes, they meet minimum state training requirements, that you put their PSID number in here. If they don't meet minimum training requirements, that's okay. You can put something like pending. This field is not restricted to numbers. So you can do that. Or if you've got somebody that's grandfathered in, that's been there for 40 years or something, you can put that here as well. But really what we're wanting to, keep up with is how many volunteer fire departments have got trained personnel on their staff. This is really more of a data collection request here.
And a couple more questions here, Lauren. We've got, what
Okay.
if we are in an exempt county on training?
If you're an exempt county, then you do not have to put any. You can put that that minimum state training requirements are met, yes, and then you don't have to put anything in the PSID. You could put exempt there, because I know there are counties that are under those special circumstances. So in that situation, under the PSID, that's what I would put, exempt.
And we've got one more question here. Their PSID is once they have gone through Tennessee Firefighting 1 course.
Their PSID number is they get once they've gone through any course through the fire academy. Most folks start with your 16-hour introduction or your 64-hour basic, but that's not necessarily the case. It could be some other course you take, but that PSID number is issued by the Fire and Codes Academy. You can find it in ACADIS. And back to we keep mentioning the fire prevention webpage. If you need help logging into ACADIS where you can look at your PSID numbers, that information is on there. And the email contacts for who you to email to get access to ACADIS if you need it. We want you to keep your rosters cleaned up in ACADIS. If you haven't looked at your roster in a while, we would appreciate you doing that, because some rosters they're just old. There's people on there that hadn't been on the department in 20 years. So again, that the information on how to get into ACADIS is on the fire prevention website. I'm going to click, this is what your roster will look like. So once you get all your members added, that's what it's going to look like. You hit submit. We'll close the window. I test that my roster is up to date. Supporting documentation. I believe if you upload your W-9 when you're completing the organization information, it'll show up here. So you shouldn't have to drag it and drop it twice. Then additional documents is going to be where you would drag and drop your federal grant award notice, any quotes that you might have for equipment
Just
that you're
a
requesting. Go ahead,
quick
Kayla.
caveat to that, Lauren. If they've notated that they have a W-9, or I'm sorry, if they notate that they have federal grant cost share back on the general information tab, they will actually have a separate required field where they'll upload that documentation. So if you don't see that box available that asks for your grant cost share, then go back through your application and make sure you have notated that yes, you are asking for federal match.
Okay, thank you, Kayla. That's my bad. Once you get all your files uploaded that you want uploaded, I'll click save draft again, just cause. And then the last page here is swearing on your life that all this is correct. Once you get that done, save draft. And you can hit submit, and I don't know what's going to happen here. So there's some fails. I didn't have my W-9 uploaded. Then I must have left something empty on my budget. So it's going to tell you if there's anything you've got to go back and fix.
And you can click directly on those items and it should take you to where the issue is. So if you mark yes there, then what I was saying earlier, now if he goes to supporting documentation, it should ask him for that federal grant cost share document. Another thing that Sean dropped in the chat is make sure you mention not to use an Outlook.com email as it may cause a failure within the grant system. We have noticed that on a couple of grant cycles past. Outlook doesn't really function well with the system. So if you are using an Outlook email and you run into issues, that will probably be our first step in trying to fix your issues. So just be aware of that. And thank you, Sean, for that.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I talked to you about that the other day, and that's still a potential problem. Okay. And if everything has gone right, that your application will then show up in our system as submitted, and we will begin the process of looking through it, making sure everything's there that's supposed to be there. If it's not, we'll let you know. We'll get back with you. We'll return it to you through the system so that you can make any changes or make any fixes. With that, we've gone through the process. I guess we'll see what questions anybody has.
We've got another one here. Will we get a confirmation email when submission is complete and successful? That's a good question, Gary. I do not think that an email goes out upon submission. However, if you scroll down just a little bit, Lauren, you can actually see you've got one submitted there. So as long as you have a one there and not a one on applications in progress, or a two, whatever it may be, if you've submitted the past couple of years, you may have more than one, but just make sure that you click on that one and make sure it's the application that you are actively working on for submission confirmation.
Yes, good question. And thank you for pointing that out.
All right. Anything else? Lauren, you did a great job right on time.
7:30.
A couple more questions here rolling in. Can you point me in the right direction to getting an Edison ID? I've tried to register as a new user and keep getting an error. We will, if you'll drop your email in the chat, we can have Kimberly or one of her associates reach out with some additional information. We also have some additional information on our grants website on how to get a supplier ID, how to get an Edison ID, steps to take, who needs to, who doesn't need to. So go ahead and drop your email in the chat and we'll get somebody to reach out to you. Another question here, are countywide departments given extra consideration versus a county which might have 12 different departments all applying on their own? So we did recently add that question about number of stations being covered. This was a request made directly from the selection committee. So they'll definitely take this information under advisement once we get into selection committee. That's something that they were adamant about being able to see. Mary Beth, I don't know if you want to add anything additional to that.
No, I was just going to say that was a pretty critical piece. When the selection committee is looking at these, of course, before without that question, they were having to make the assumption blindly that it was theoretically a countywide. So I think that information is going to be helpful for them as of. I checked my email from last year. Okay, so it looks like we do get a confirmation email that is sent. Thank you for confirming that. I really can't echo enough that beyond this webinar, each of us who are here today are available to assist you with this. So we'll do a quick wrap up of all of our emails right here just so that we have them in here. But please don't hesitate at any point. It may be something that's you've noticed about the application or you think might be helpful. I will say each year we have had very helpful information come back to us from applicants, which have helped us to improve the application process and, quite frankly, make it much more user-friendly, even for us as staff. So even if it's something that you think maybe is minor, feel free to reach out to us, a question, comment, or otherwise.
Don't see any other questions coming in through the chat. There's email addresses. And Mary Beth or Kayla, this one thing I don't know. How long does it take us to get this webinar posted?
It will just be dependent upon how many edits need to be made prior. So I know that we were recording probably about 25 minutes before the meeting started. So we'll have to cut out that 25 minutes and make some additional titles during the video so people can jump on and just go to a certain portion of the video that they're needing help with. Just real quick, let's see, who was it? Andrea. If you could just email sfmo.grants with the EIN and department name, then they will assist you and help you look up that supplier ID or Edison ID number. So if you could, Andrea, if you're still with us, just make sure you email sfmo.grants@tn.gov with your EIN and department name.
Anybody else? Bye, Sean. All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks to all the team for tuning in. I appreciate your help, everyone. Good luck applying. And again, reach out if you need any help.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.